So this last part of the evening is the group share period. If anyone wants to share reports about their experience, questions about the practice, or about practice in general, or the talk, it's a pretty open format. So if you have a question or share, just raise your hand, and we'll do this for the next 25 minutes or so. Kanchan.
Actually, like, for years, as I've come to the Sunday sits, I've noticed, for whatever reason, a lot of body tension seems to happen, which makes it really difficult to be in my body. I think for a long time I just believed okay, there's no way I could actually really feel like I'm in my body. It's just not possible. Recently, and today in particular, I've noticed I was able to maintain it more than I ever have. There's still a lot of tension and resistance, and I was just curious if you had just any tips for working when there's with maybe any resistance, or if there's anything for when you're particularly just frozen.
Right. So it's a fairly common experience. So it sounds like many years coming to Sunday sit, and if the instruction is given, notice your body, be in your body, and it just feels either there's nothing there, or it feels tight and frozen. And then we throw a bunch of stuff at it, and it doesn't seem like anything is happening, right? And then today it felt like you could really be in your body more than ever, but there's you're still noticing some challenges and difficulties, maybe tensions or pain or something. Great. And then any general tips on how do we relate to this? What do we do about this?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so one of the things I didn't mention that I wish I had was over thousands of years there have been people who have developed, you could say, techniques or practices or technologies, using technology in a very broad way, of how to work with our bodies, work with our subjective experience, work with our consciousness. And to some extent, I think in the modern world, we've kind of lost that sense of those practices and techniques and traditions. And, we have light and airplanes and cars and stuff. So most of us focus on understanding the world through our minds and gathering knowledge and learning how to fit knowledge together in novel ways so that we can create new things and learn new things and manipulate the external world so that it does new cool stuff. And I'm reading this book about how emotions are constructed, and I listened to an interview by the author, and even there's very much a sense of she knows a lot about how the brain works, but I don't get the sense that most of the time when we approach it this way, we know, that doesn't mean necessarily then we know how to change how our minds work internally. We might really understand the biological, the neurological basis of why it happens or something. It seems to happen this way. But it doesn't necessarily mean we know, okay, but how do you change that besides taking a pill or doing some sort of external intervention? So what's revolutionary now, practice like mindfulness, is that there's practices that we can do as a practice, as a skill, to choose to have the power, to have the autonomy, to have the sovereignty, the independence, to practice different ways of relating, practice different ways of being, practice different ways of our consciousness, awareness, focusing on our experience. and thereby experience completely different, subjectively completely experience a completely different reality. And so we could go to the doctor and say, wow, I'm having a lot of tension in my body, and maybe they'll prescribe us some sort of muscle relaxant or something, or tell us to get more sleep or something. Maybe we'll get a massage to relax the muscles, to apply stress to the muscles so they need to learn to relax and get energy and flow back into them. And these are all good things. These aren't like bad things necessarily. But there's also an internal art of how do we relate to our experience, how are we relating to our bodies, what are we doing with this tension or numbness or anxiety or stuckness or fear or doubt or shame or insecurity or whatever it is. I'm not naming the happy ones because usually the main issue of happy ones are usually that we get fixated on them. We want to keep them forever or something. And so one of the challenges is that we're sort of like a surgeon operating on ourselves. And so we can go into our bodies and we notice the stuckness or numbness or whatever hard, challenging feeling it is, sensation it is. And we often immediately get paralyzed. Our cognitive functioning gets impaired because it feels so overwhelming. So for a lot of us, we just have to do this dozens or hundreds of times so that we become more familiar with this experience so that we don't immediately just seize up and become incapable of doing anything. So some of it's just exposure and experience and holding on to the right view, that there is a skill here, there is a practice here, even if it's really hard, even if I got seized up the last 20 times, there's some level of trust and faith of there must be something that can be done about this. And a lot of times when I give instruction, like just be with your experience, be in your body, I think, and I definitely have done this many times, we take that instruction to mean, okay, I gotta really force myself to really power through this or something. Gotta really feel this tension or something. We sort of add on extra tension on top of the tension. And really subtly, we're not actually fully feeling the experience. We're actually trying to do something to make it go away or change by... we're like moving toward... It's like we're pushing the gas pedal and we're hitting the brake at the same time. And so it takes a lot of discernment and clarity and concentration to notice, oh, even as I'm moving towards this, I'm actually tensing up more. Which probably means I should stop and maybe take a few steps back. So where's the liminal edge? Where's the space where I'm not tensing up more, but I'm closer to the tension? The tension's here, and I keep walking towards it, and actually I'm creating more tension as I walk towards it. Okay, I shouldn't do that. Maybe I need to stop, maybe even take a step back. Where's the edge where I can just be with it, be with myself, be with my experience, without adding more stress? And for most of us, it's like mildly creepy, at least in my experience, it's like a mild, creepy, crawly, squirmy feeling. And it almost feels better to feel the extra tension or something. And so learning, okay, how do I just be uncomfortable and not add any extra new tension and just sit here, maybe for a whole sit, and just be okay. Most of us either rush and want to just go right towards it, But as we're going towards it, we actually create more stress and more tension, or we want to run away, and so we fall asleep or we think about something else. And most of us tend to do both. So we run towards it, it becomes overwhelming, so we fall asleep, or we think about something else, or we judge ourselves or something. And we just go back and forth between these, rather than just finding where is the actual sustainable edge that's mildly uncomfortable, maybe. And it seems like if I just stay here, nothing's going to happen. That's okay. Just have complete acceptance of I'm just going to feel this. This might feel like the same thing over and over and over and over again, but I'm just going to stick there. And then there's a lot of other auxiliary sort of techniques you can do, but I would say this is like the fundamental, basic one that at least I personally do and teach. There's a lot of other things you can do. There are dozens of ways to work with tension in the body. All of them basically revolve around how do I have a full experience of my body, say, or my emotions, without creating extra stress. And I think this is such a subtle point that's really hard for us to see, because it's so easy to notice, oh, I'm falling asleep, or I'm paying attention to some dream or ideas about something. That's like kind of obvious when we catch it. We go, oh, that's obviously distraction. But this idea of, no, I'm really with the tension and it's not going away. Why are you not going away? It's hard to notice in that moment I'm actually not, I'm actually creating more tension. And it's really hard to notice what is the tension that's there and what is the extra tension I'm creating while I'm trying to be with the tension. One time, I remember my first year in training, I was sitting in the retreat and I thought to myself, or maybe it was just a normal day, I don't remember, but it was one of the evening sits, and I thought to myself, when Soryu, the head teacher, gives a guided meditation, I go really deep. Why is it when he says things that I know how to say in my own head, how come it goes really deep? But when I'm sitting by myself, this is terrible. It's just not working. And it seems like I'm really trying, but it just seems like I get more tense and it's just worse. And so I said, you know what? I'm just going to do a guided meditation for myself, but I'm not going to rush it at all. I'm going to go actually as slow as possible. And I imagined this nice woman that I worked with a while back was guiding me, leading me. I imagined she was sitting right in front of me, and she was guiding me, and I was imagining her voice in my head, and she was just telling me things like, it's okay, breathe. I was like, oh, okay, breathe. I'm like, good job. Okay, let's try breathing again. I'm like, oh, okay, I can try breathing again. And then I might start forcing it, and she would go, I think you added some extra tension. Why don't you take a step back and relax your body? Don't stress out. I'd be like, oh, okay, great. And I just went so slowly, and I could feel the tension ball or whatever in my body, and I would go just the slowest amount towards it, and then as soon as I noticed some flare-up or some extra tension flaring up, I would stop and take a step back. Like, oh, got too close. And then closer, and just did this dance for, I don't know, it felt like hours. And it felt like in the beginning, like, this is not going to lead anywhere. This takes way too long. But it was one of the most blissful, nice sits I ever had. After, I don't know, an hour or half an hour or however long it was. And that level of patience, of unconditional acceptance of our experience, that's really hard, because we think that just means we're falling asleep. But actually, there's a level of complete, engaged, patient awareness, which is really what we're looking for. Not the forcing and not the laziness, but how do I be relaxed and engaged? That's really revolutionary when that clicks. Oh, I can be relaxed and engaged. That's amazing. So I would say one tip would be go as slow as possible. Don't rush it. If you notice any rushing, better just to stop. Start over. This is just one approach, of course. There are other people that I might tell them other things, but for now, I'd say that's the approach I'm teaching right now to y'all. So, is that helpful? Okay. Any other questions, Jesse?
I just wanted to add
Mm-hmm.
sure. That I heard you say that it was at the Sunday set. So I think that's something to pay attention to, actually in meditation. What is it about this experience as opposed to the others that would bring on this experience?
Great. Yeah.
I had an experience in the interpersonal meditation I just wanted to comment on.
Great.
I found that when you said the words, like say the statement in your head, I don't know this person, it had like a really intense emotional impact on me, and I felt like a distance, like a spatial distance kind of like invoke itself between me and the person. And I realized that like we stick to stories maybe that we create about other people in order to like form connection maybe, or like our connection is dependent on the stories that we create about the person, and sort of like removing those stories like invoked a feeling of distance. I don't know if that's like a I don't know what I'm saying about that, but I thought it was interesting.
It was very interesting. Huh. So after you said in your head, like, I don't know this person, you noticed it actually created more distance, sense of more separation. Huh. That's interesting. Well, so the intention of the instruction, the reason I said that was to try to shake up the habitual thing of like, oh, I know this person, we're just, we're just having this experience, and familiar things kind of become boring in a way. We kind of like reify and objectify and package familiar things into objects that I know and understand. So I was trying to shake that up. But I think you might be pointing out a good thing, which is also that this sense of knowing something, that familiarity can also provide maybe a sense of trust and safety too, and connection on a certain level. It kind of being in complete unfamiliar territory for some of us is really invigorating, exciting, and empowering. And yet that same physical sensations for another person can be really terrifying or disconnecting or disconcerting or nervous or whatever. I think before I give a talk, I can either be scared or I can be excited, and it's hard to tell which one will be which, or both. So, yeah, that's very interesting. Hopefully the purpose, or one of the goals of the exercise, is to notice that everything is always in flux, that everything is not just the story I have of it. It's whatever our stories are referencing is larger than our story. But it might be interesting that, as you're pointing out, there might be this dimensionality of when do stories actually serve a purpose to help us be connected. And we see in the world today, a lot of us fall into different stories that we feel comfortable and safe around. These people have certain political beliefs, and I feel safe and comfortable and feel like I know them and it feels okay to be near them. These other people have opposite beliefs and maybe I don't like them or I don't want to be around them. So there's a certain level where stories, beliefs, understanding of people can maybe help us come together. But it can also polarize us against those we don't know, say. And then the question is there this other third option I'd be curious about where I don't know the person, or I don't know them completely. Even if I knew all of you for years, there's still an element of, there's a lot I don't know. There's a lot about myself I don't know still. There's more I don't know about myself probably than I do actually know about myself. And is there a way that there's a connection? Is there a way to settle into that space where the parts of us that we don't know each other can meet? That's what I'm personally hoping, something we can investigate and get clarity on. But it's very interesting. It wasn't something I considered. That it sounds like the story was maybe like a bridge for connection. And then when that's taken away, what's available then? Is there another bridge, or is that the main only bridge available? I don't know. Thanks for sharing that. I didn't consider that before. Cool. One last thing, if anyone's got it. Yeah.
I'm wondering about how to relate to words.
Mm-hmm.
I had this experience where you would say something and I would be like, oh my gosh, let me repeat that again. Let me like hold that again so that I can like embody the meaning again. And then I would notice that I was like, had left this other place that I was and was seeking those words again.
Right.
And then I was like, all right, how can I just be like brushed with the meaning and like let it brush through me and like not need to like hold it again? Yeah, and so I'm wondering what you have to say about how to relate to words.
Yeah. I was just talking about this earlier, actually, today. Words and concepts have a tremendous impact and importance on, our minds, on how we perceive, on how we understand things, even in how we construct emotions and our experience of things. This is a very rich topic that I'm still very curious about and exploring in my own practice in life. I think for a lot of us, not everyone, but for a lot of us, we tend to live more in a conceptual word, story, mind kind of space. And so the gravitational pull is so strong there that when we actually find some momentum in being in our bodies, in our emotional experience, it's kind of very fragile at times to stay in that. So as soon as a belief or story or outside word comes in, it can easily get sucked back up. At least for me, it's really easy to get just whoomph. This constant mindfulness of being in our bodies, being in our direct experience before words, that's a practice and a skill in and of itself. And then when that has a certain amount of momentum, both overall, but also situationally in the moment, in a sit or something, we can then receive words without it becoming the primary object. And just like you said, it can just brush past rather than get sucked back into it. But yeah, it's really interesting that words have such a huge, important part of how we construct our experience. And I think even on a subconscious level, we're actually often using concepts to construct our reality, so that if someone outside or ourselves just says a word like trust or faith or courage or just anything, suddenly we have a completely different experience, or subtly have a completely different experience. So I don't have a good solution or anything besides that's a very rich and important thing to explore.